Hey there, I'm home here in Hell's Kitchen. I want to get on here and talk about a hard life lesson as an adult. And I want to say this specifically because this is a lesson I've learned in the past many years. It's about saying, I'm sorry after you fucked up with a friend or a relative or whatever, you know. You can say sorry, that's very easy, it's very fine to do, we can accept it, but only if there's a behavior and attitude change that goes along with it. What I mean is, like, say I did something to a friend, and the next day I'm like, I'm sorry I said that, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry I did that, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, okay, it's all cool, don't worry. But then I go about and do the same shit later on. And then the next day I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, sorry I did that, blah, blah, blah. And the person's like, okay, but mind you, you did it before. And you said you're sorry, but then you did it again. Can we please watch our behaviors and attitudes? You know, and then we do it again. And the next day, I come around and be like, oh, I'm sorry, I did this and I said this. And then my friend's like, you know what? I'm going to let you go for a while because apparently you didn't learn a lesson. But I said, I'm sorry. Yes, you said you're sorry, but this time I don't accept it. So I'm going to have to remove myself from you for the time being until you figure out how you can change this behavior. Because apparently saying I'm sorry doesn't change the behavior. You know, so behavior and attitude, that takes time, that takes effort. Um, Sometimes it takes going to a therapist or going to a group therapy session. Sometimes it might take, for some of us, a 12-step program, you know, which means going to meetings, you know. We, like I said, it takes time and effort to change these behaviors that affect other people. Now, you want to change behaviors, change that attitude, or, you know, to become a better person for this friend. So over time, you know, if you get it, if you understand why this person removed themselves from you, and you're like, oh my God, what do I need? Because I really like this person. This person really means something to me. If you're grown up enough to be like, okay, apparently I keep doing this behavior. How do I change this behavior? You know, it could be something you're doing when you're drunk, something, or it could be an anger issue, or it could be like relying on something that is not good for you, maybe a relationship, maybe, you know, whatever it is that's hindering this relationship from continuing on. You know, for me, you know, it definitely was anger, it definitely was drinking, it definitely was. So I had to arrest these problems. You know, I had to take care of them. You know, I went to therapy. You know, I talked it out. It was very uncomfortable. It wasn't easy. You know, I didn't want to admit to, you know, a professional stranger things I've done. But then all of a sudden, talking through it, certain things come up. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know this about myself. Let me talk about it. And then after talking about it, realizing the deeper issues of what's going on in here, you know, this entire being, that causes these behaviors to come out, you know. But that's my story. So, just to end this, just saying I'm sorry after you fuck up with a friend, a lot of times it doesn't work because, so I'm looking at the chat, because If you're just saying sorry and not taking action to change the behavior, that sorry means nothing. So for a lot of us, it's like we have to deal with that behavior and attitude, to continue growing a relationship we have with somebody that means something dear to us. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening to me. And that's it. Take care, people.